And Antioch is a working class community. It used to be, a long time ago, it was a working class white community, and now it's a much more mixed community. And there are a lot of black folks in Antioch, working class white folks, Latinx folks, Asian American folk. And about a month and a half ago, I think it was, ICE came to take a family away. And the other residents, who were not undocumented and in fact were not brown, these were mostly white folks, surrounded the family, surrounded their house, wouldn't let ICE pass. The family was in their car, and these people surrounded the car and wouldn't let, and they didn't have the right. ICE does not have the right to rip you out of a vehicle or even to rip you out of a house. They don't have the right to do certain things. They act like they do, but they don't. And they knew that they couldn't do anything, and the family just stood there for like 14 hours or something until ICE just finally went away, and this family to this day has not been deported, right? So I mean, that kind of stuff, like literally just saying, no, you're not going to do this today. You're not going to do this to this valued member of our community that contributes to this community and works hard every day and raises their kids and their friends. You're just not going to do it, right? So we've got to think about ways to act in solidarity. That could be through faith communities. It could be through nonprofit communities. In addition to that, we've really got to come up with some ways to deal with just not only the deportation threat and that kind of thing, but the gentrification piece. You know, the thing about gentrification that people sometimes miss, I think, because sometimes when you critique gentrification, the sort of infusion of money and capital into poor communities, people go, well, why are you upset about that? Like, do you want those communities to stay poor? No, nobody wants the community to stay poor. Nobody who lives in a poor space is like, we're good just like this. Like, we don't want any resources, we don't want any more money, we don't want any businesses or jobs, we don't want the roads fixed, we sort of like it the way it is. Like, nobody says that. But the difference is the people that have lived in those communities for a long time, rightly so, wonder why it took so long for these resources to come, right? Why is it that the government, state, local, and federal didn't want to invest in those spaces when it was just them living there, as opposed to them and the hipsters who moved in and discovered the neighborhood and became pioneers, or whatever we like to call them, right? And came in and put in the hot yoga studio and the Pilates studio and the 5 coffee shops and the whatever, right? And nothing wrong with yoga, nothing wrong with Pilates, and nothing wrong with coffee. I'm just saying, right? You come in, you remake the neighborhood in the way that you want to, with very little consultation with the people who were there. And so I think we got to rethink not economic development as a principle, but just the way that it plays out, because people are getting priced out of their homes, especially people on fixed incomes who are elderly and maybe they're retired and they can't pay, you know, a 20% increase in the property taxes. They might have their house paid off, right, but they still got to pay the taxes every year. Or if you're renting, you can't afford the increase in the rent. So one of the things we ought to be pushing for in those communities and demanding locally, if possible, is some type of policy, and there are a lot of ways this could potentially look, but some kind of policy that would, let's say, just as an example, that, you know, any family that's been in the neighborhood for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, you just pick a threshold, before it got hip, before it got hot, before it started to gentrify and turn over, right, would have their property taxes frozen at the level that they were before it got hot, right? So we'll give them some type of property tax relief where we'll freeze their rates and they won't go up. And that way the cost of gentrification would be borne by the gentrifiers, not by the people who had always